Hi, and welcome to Reddit Confessions. Buckle in, because this isn't your average breakup story. No one storms out. No plates get smashed. No screaming. Just one sentence, and the sound of a man realizing his entire marriage was a slow, quiet lie. "I only regret one thing," she said while adjusting the wine bottle between us. No warning. No build-up. Just that. We were sitting at a restaurant where the lighting was too dim to see the truth on someone's face, and I think she picked it on purpose. She took another sip. I thought maybe she was going to say she regretted quitting ballet or not finishing her degree. Instead, marrying you. Just like that. Like it was a trivia fact she'd been waiting to drop. I stared at her. Not because I was angry, but because I couldn't tell if she was serious or just casually cruel. "I'll fix that," I said, barely hearing myself. "Right now." She smiled, not kindly, not apologetically. More like someone who had just crossed the finish line in a race only they knew they were running. And then she stood up. Not even halfway through the bottle. Took her purse. And left. Didn't ask me to come with her. Didn't say goodbye. Didn't even look back. I sat there in a daze while the waiter awkwardly placed the bill next to the half-empty wine glasses and the full weight of my humiliation. But here's the part that no one, not even me, saw coming. The next day, someone called me. It wasn't her. It was someone who knew everything. And they weren't calling to comfort me. They were calling to confess. I didn't pick up the phone on the first ring. Or the second. I just sat there staring at the screen, watching the name flicker like a ghost from another life, Nicolette Barlow. Her name felt radioactive in that moment. My wife's ex-roommate. Maid of honor at our wedding. Once a friend of mine, now just a stranger with perfect Instagram angles and a knack for saying too much at dinner parties. I almost let it go to voicemail. But curiosity is a persistent thing when your life has just fallen apart. "Hey," I said, trying to sound like I wasn't hollow inside. "What's up?" She didn't respond right away. I could hear her breathing. Then she asked, almost too carefully, "Ellison, did Renee tell you anything about her trip to Austin last month?" The question hit like a slap I didn't see coming. I blinked. She said it was for a protein tech conference. Networking thing. Why? Silence. Then a soft exhale. "She wasn't there for work," Nicolette said. "She was there to meet Marcus." My stomach flipped. Marcus was Renee's ex. The one she said cheated on her in college. The one she said taught her what kind of man not to marry. That Marcus? "I'm not trying to stir the pot," Nicolette added quickly. "But I thought you should know. I only found out because she slipped up in a group chat." I asked her directly. She admitted it. Said it was closure. But it didn't sound like closure, Ellison. It sounded like something else. I couldn't even speak. My mouth was dry. My thoughts were louder than the room around me. The blinds were open, and the morning sun was too bright for the kind of darkness falling inside me. "She planned it weeks in advance," Nicolette went on. "It wasn't spontaneous. She booked a hotel 2 blocks from his apartment. Told me she needed a safe space to think. I didn't say anything before because I thought maybe she'd come clean to you. I felt like my lungs were stuck. Like I couldn't breathe around the truth." "She used you, Ellison," Nicolette said. "And not just emotionally. I think she used your name to get the work flight discounted. I think your company unknowingly paid for her to go see another man." I don't know how long I sat there after she hung up. 10 minutes. 30. I just stared at the table, the same table Renee and I picked out together from that overpriced furniture boutique downtown. The one she insisted on getting because we'll be grown-ups now. Everything in our house had a story. A lie stitched into every thread. The worst part? I wasn't even angry yet. I was just embarrassed. Embarrassed to think I was ever enough. That I mattered more than nostalgia. That a man who folds laundry and preheats her side of the bed could ever compete with someone who once broke her heart and got away with it. By the time I finally stood up, I didn't know what I was going to do next. But then I noticed something strange, something I hadn't seen before. Her passport. Still on the kitchen counter. Open. Inside was a customs slip from Mexico. Not Austin. And the date? It was 2 weeks before her so-called conference. So now the question wasn't just, did she lie? It was, how many times? And more urgently. Who else already knew? I couldn't stop staring at the passport. It felt like it had more to say than anyone else in this whole nightmare. Its quiet presence on the counter mocked me. A small book filled with stamps, lies, and my own ignorance. I flipped through it again, not because I expected the stamp to disappear, but because I needed to be sure I hadn't lost my mind. Cancun. 3 days. No mention of work. No conference. No Marcus. I sat down, and for the first time in my adult life, I Googled how to check international hotel bookings through airline rewards. My hands were shaking, but I kept going. The loyalty account she used was tied to our joint credit card. One login later, and there it was, a romantic suite at a beachfront adults-only resort. Booked under her maiden name. For 2 people. And I wasn't one of them. I wanted to scream, or break something, or disappear, but instead I did what I always do when life breaks me, I got quiet. Not because I was strong, but because it was the only way to survive the weight of the betrayal pressing into my chest. I couldn't ask her about it. She was still ghosting me. No calls. No texts. No nothing since the moment she left the restaurant. So I did something desperate. I called her mother. Now before you judge me, understand this, her mom, Joni, never liked me much. She thought I wasn't ambitious enough, that I wasn't a go-getter. Once she told me I was too gentle, like that was an insult. But she also had the world's worst poker face and a mouth that ran faster than her brain. So I figured, maybe she'd slip. She picked up on the second ring. Ellison, she said, surprised. Is Renee okay? I didn't answer that directly. I just had some questions about her travel plans. There was a pause. Too long. You mean the Mexico trip? She asked cautiously. Bingo. Yeah, I said, masking the quake in my voice. She didn't really tell me much about it. I only found out by accident. Joni was quiet for a second. Then she chuckled, like I had caught a toddler stealing cookies. Well, I told her it was a bad idea, she said. Running off like that with, well, you know. After everything he put her through. I didn't breathe. I mean, I guess she needed closure, but the way she did it was, reckless. And expensive, she added. I felt my heart slow down and speed up at the same time. Who did she go with? There was a pause. Then, you don't know. Joni, I said, barely able to keep my voice steady, I found out from her passport. She told me she was going to Texas. Her voice shifted instantly. Defensive. I don't want to be involved in your marriage stuff, Ellison. But you already are, I snapped. And the least you can do is tell me if my wife's cheating on me with someone I've never even heard of. She hesitated again, then finally dropped it like a brick. It's a guy named Caleb. I blinked. Who the hell is Caleb? A doctor, she muttered. I think. Or something with medical sales. She met him at one of her biotech panels a while back. I thought it was just a work friend. But then she told me they were flying out together and, she caught herself. Look, Ellison, I didn't know she was lying to you. Don't drag me into this. I didn't say anything. I just hung up. My fingers were numb. Caleb. A name I had never heard. A person I had never seen. Yet he knew my wife's body, her secrets, her time, while I was home fixing the garbage disposal and folding her favorite sweaters. She didn't just lie about where she went. She created an entire second life. The worst part? I wasn't angry enough. I wasn't storming into offices or throwing out her things or making a scene. I just stood there. A man with no clue what to feel, what to think, or who to believe anymore. But that changed, quickly, when I got a text from her old phone number. Not her new one, not the one she started using after leaving. Her old phone. The one I thought was deactivated. And what it said made my blood run cold. Ellison. I need to talk. Urgently. I can't trust anyone else. The message didn't come through iMessage. It was a plain green bubble, the kind you forget still exists in a world full of blue. It came from her old number, the one we shared on our family plan, the one she said she no longer used after switching carriers. I had deactivated it myself last month. Or. I thought I had. Ellison. I need to talk. Urgently. I can't trust anyone else. I stared at it for so long my screen dimmed. I couldn't wrap my head around it. Why would she use that number again? What did she mean by, can't trust anyone else? Was this some twisted guilt tactic? A trap? Or, something real? My gut said to ignore it. But my heart, the sad, wounded, still trying heart, said, what if it's important? What if she's in danger? I replied with 3 words I immediately regretted. Where are you? 2 dots appeared. Then a reply. Not safe to say. Can you meet me tonight? I should have said no. I should have stayed on the path of quiet separation, finished the paperwork, and moved on like a normal adult. But when you spend years loving someone, even after they gut you emotionally, part of you still craves understanding. Closure. One last explanation that might make it all make sense. I asked for a location. She sent me coordinates. Not an address. Coordinates. I copied them into maps. It was a closed-down garden center on the outskirts of town. One of those places that went out of business when the mega stores took over. The satellite view showed cracked pavement and an empty greenhouse behind a wire fence. I sat in my car for over an hour before I left. Not because I was planning, but because I was debating whether I wanted to peel another layer off this already rotting truth. Eventually, I drove out. Sunset had already passed. The lot was dim, the only light coming from the motion-triggered flood at the rear of the greenhouse. My heart raced like I was sneaking into a crime scene. As I got out of the car, I scanned the shadows. Then I heard it. Ellison. But it wasn't her voice. It was a man's. I froze. He stepped out from behind a rusted gardening rack, holding something in his hand, a phone. Not mine. Hers. That old phone number. It was in his pocket. I stepped back, suddenly alert. Who the hell are you? I'm Caleb, he said. That name. Again. He looked nothing like I imagined. He wasn't tall. He wasn't suave. He wasn't dressed like some medical sales superstar. He was in a hoodie, jeans, and shoes that had clearly walked through something muddy. She's not who you think she is, he said quickly. She's been using both of us. I should have left. I should have called the cops or at least hit record. But instead, I stood there, stunned. He tossed the phone toward me. I caught it. The screen was cracked, but the battery icon blinked. Still alive. I took it from her hotel bag when she went to shower. I know it's wrong. But she's dangerous, Ellison. Dangerous? I said, laughing bitterly. She lied. She cheated. But dangerous? Caleb stepped closer. You think she only lied about you? She's been stealing. From her employer. Using fake travel reports. Charging things to internal accounts. She made me help her at first, said it was for startup projects. But now there's an investigation. I shook my head. Why tell me this? Because if this blows up, she's going to throw both of us under the bus. And I've seen the way she keeps notes. Messages. Emails. She's kept every one of yours. Like she was preparing a narrative. She wouldn't, I stopped. I wanted to believe that. But I remembered her blank expression at the restaurant. The ease with which she walked away. She already has, he said. Why do you think she disappeared the moment the heat started? And why do you think she's avoiding you now? She's cleaning up. Erasing you. I didn't know what to say. My wife wasn't just unfaithful. She was dangerous. Or at least, calculated in a way that made me question every memory we ever made. Caleb handed me a small slip of paper. This is the name of the internal auditor who's poking around. You didn't hear it from me. Then he walked off. I stood there, clutching a broken phone, a scribbled name, and the final shreds of the life I thought I had. Back in my car, I turned on the phone. Only one file sat on the home screen. An audio recording. Dated 3 weeks ago. Location tagged, Cancun. And when I hit play, the first voice I heard wasn't Renee's. It was mine. The moment I heard my own voice come through that speaker, something shifted in my brain. My first instinct was to think it was some kind of AI clone or manipulated audio, maybe one of those fake voice apps. But the tone, the inflections, even the awkward throat clear at the beginning, it was me. Unmistakably me. Saying words I don't remember ever saying. The recording crackled slightly, like it had been captured on an old mic in a pocket. I was saying something about a room key. Then came laughter, hers. Renee's voice. Warm. Flirty. The kind of laugh she hadn't shared with me in years. Then I heard myself say. They'll never know. We're just ghosts here. I paused the recording immediately. My hands were clammy. My brain scrambled for answers. I never said those words. Not to her. Not to anyone. I'd never even been to Cancun. So how in God's name, was my voice on a recording with her, tagged to that resort? I restarted it, this time with trembling fingers. It played more clearly now. There was the sound of waves, of glasses clinking. A hotel door shutting. And then, unmistakably, Renee whispering, "You're so much better than him." My breath caught. And then again, my voice. But not live. It was a recording of a recording, spliced. Frankensteined. It wasn't me. It was pieced together. She had cut pieces of my old voicemails, private video chats, and even a few of our past phone calls, things I'd forgotten even existed, and strung them together to sound like a confession. To make it sound like I had been in Cancun with her. Like I had cheated. It wasn't just betrayal. It was a setup. A full-on digital frame job. The only question was, why? I backed out of the file and opened the voice memos folder. There were more. Dozens. Some of her narrating things like a documentary. Others of me, well, her version of me, saying wildly out-of-character things. One clip had me saying, "I just use her money. She's too dumb to notice." My heart dropped to my stomach. This wasn't about the affair anymore. This wasn't about love, or lies, or a broken marriage. This was premeditated reputation destruction. And somehow, Caleb had access to it. Why? Was he a pawn? An accomplice? Or just collateral damage? I copied the files to my laptop, backed them up to an encrypted drive, then deleted them off the old phone, at least temporarily. If Renee realized Caleb had handed it over, she'd come looking. And I wanted her to believe she still had control. The next morning, I made a call to the internal auditor Caleb had scribbled on the paper. A woman named Tamsin LeClaire. I didn't go into details. Just told her I had come into possession of some recordings that might affect an ongoing internal ethics investigation. She was cautious, but professional. She gave me an address to drop off a copy anonymously. No questions asked. For the sake of preserving evidence integrity, she said. I burned the files onto a secure USB, wrapped it in brown paper, and dropped it in a courier box 2 towns over. If Renee was spiraling, I didn't want to be anywhere near the eye of the storm. But it was already too late. Because when I returned home, the front door was open. I hadn't left it that way. I stepped inside slowly, every creak of the floorboard feeling louder than usual. Nothing looked ransacked. No broken windows. No furniture flipped. But something felt off. And then I saw it. A single, white envelope. Sitting neatly in the center of my bed. With my name on it, written in her handwriting. I stared at it like it was ticking. And when I finally opened it, my entire body went cold. Inside wasn't a letter. It was a printed email. From my work account. An email I had never written. And it was addressed to her boss. With the subject line. Urgent, fraudulent activity and confidential whistleblower info. The email claimed I had knowledge of illegal practices within her lab. Claimed I had proof that the startup was falsifying results for investor presentations. And it was signed with my full name, employee ID, and even my digital signature, stolen from old PDF documents. She was planning to burn everything. Me. Her company. Her reputation. Mine. In one swoop. And I still didn't know why. But then I turned the envelope over. There was a post-it stuck to the back. 3 words. Now we're even. I stared at those 3 words like they were meant to stop my heart. Now we're even. Even for what? For loving her too long. For not catching the lies sooner. For folding her stupid avocado socks the wrong way. What debt had I ever incurred that warranted this level of sabotage? The forged email sat on my desk, and though my hands were trembling, my brain had never been more alert. This wasn't just malicious, it was surgical. Methodical. I wasn't dealing with a cheating spouse anymore. I was dealing with someone who had rehearsed this. Scripted it. Every fake message, every audio recording, every planted breadcrumb was part of something bigger. And now she was telling me it was over. I wasn't convinced. I sat down at my desk and opened my work laptop. I ran a full email log search for any outgoing messages over the last 2 weeks. Nothing matched the subject line she printed. Which meant she hadn't sent it yet. She just wanted me to know she could. And that scared me more than if she actually had. Renee had never been confrontational. But this? This was psychological warfare. And she was good at it. I started looking through our old shared cloud folder. She never remembered to fully log out when she changed phones or synced new apps. Most people don't. And sure enough, her photo backups were still quietly uploading to our joint storage. At first, it was nothing but mirror selfies and brunch plates. But then I found a folder labeled cal_prof, and inside were screenshots. Pages and pages of notes. Not diary entries. Not to-do lists. But scripts. Scripts of conversations she'd practiced. Entire text exchanges she'd drafted and rewritten. Responses she would send if I ever accused her. Voice lines she could record and stitch together to form fake audio. She had even transcribed parts of our real conversations and annotated which phrases of mine were most emotionally believable. It hit me like a punch to the chest. I had been rehearsed. Everything I thought was private, real, spontaneous, she'd turned into material. She hadn't just prepared to lie, she prepared to be believed. And I had walked right into it for years. There was one file I hesitated to open. Plan_B_final. PDF. It was 7 pages long. Bullet points. Dates. Targets. She had backup plans for every possible scenario, me catching her, Caleb exposing her, her employer suspecting fraud. She even wrote contingencies if her mother flipped on her. It was like watching the mind of someone planning a heist, except the vault she was breaking into was my life. And then, on page 6, I saw something that made me physically nauseous. A calendar reminder entry, dated for next week. Labeled Ellison's final push. Underneath it was a checklist. Send anonymous complaint to his HR. Forward edited Cancun audio to backup drive. Use his tax form copy from 2022 for leverage. Publish joint statement if media coverage picks up. Media coverage? What the hell was she planning? That night, I didn't sleep. I just sat in the dark with the old phone, the envelope, and a glass of bourbon I could barely taste. I didn't even trust myself to go to work the next day. What if she triggered something? What if she was already pulling strings behind the scenes? By sunrise, I made a decision I never thought I'd make. I called Caleb. I hated that I had to. But he was the only other person who had seen the layers of this thing. He picked up with a clipped hello, like he'd been waiting for this call since the moment he handed me the phone. She's not done, I said. He didn't ask how I knew. He just said, meet me. I've got something you need to hear. An hour later, I was parked in an alley behind a boarded-up barbershop he used as his safe spot. He handed me a flash drive without a word. What's on this? I asked. Insurance, he said. She made me record something. Pretend I was you. It was supposed to be a deepfake project. She claimed it was for a conference demonstration. But after what you told me, I checked the metadata. And she uploaded it 4 days ago. Labeled it under your name. She's making you the fall guy, Ellison. I gripped the drive so tight I thought it would crack. Why? He shook his head. I think she's covering up something bigger. Maybe not just infidelity. Maybe money. Or illegal research. Whatever it is, you're her parachute. That night, I did the only thing I could think to do. I booked a one-way ticket. Out of state. Under a different name. Just for a week. And I left everything, the house, the job, the accounts, locked and encrypted behind me. But before I boarded that flight, I left one thing behind. A note. Folded, simple, taped to the inside of her favorite mug, the one she always reached for first. It said. You rehearsed the whole thing. But you forgot one thing. I write the final scene. I didn't run. At least, that's what I kept telling myself as the plane took off and my city vanished beneath the clouds. Running meant panic. Fear. Losing control. But I wasn't panicking anymore. I had moved past shock and into something colder, calculation. The same kind of state I once believed Renee lived in, and now fully understood. I had to vanish because I needed room to think. I needed the space to see the whole picture, not the one she choreographed, not the one Caleb glimpsed from the edges, but the full, fractured truth. The place I flew to. A nowhere town in Montana. Population, maybe a few thousand. I found a month-to-month rental behind a bait shop, paid in cash, and used a fake name at check-in. The woman at the counter didn't care, just asked if I wanted decaf or regular pods for the tiny coffee maker. I chose decaf. I hadn't slept well enough for caffeine in weeks. From the moment I closed that creaky door behind me, I stopped playing defense. My first move was to contact Tamsin LeClaire again, the internal auditor. I sent her a secure message from a burner laptop, this time attaching everything. The scripts. The recordings. The forged email. Even the Ellison's final push document. I didn't sign the email. I didn't have to. I knew she'd recognize the contents. 2 hours later, she replied. I believe you. And you're not the first to come forward. Stay safe. That one sentence shattered every assumption I still clung to. Not the first to come forward. What did that mean? Who else had been caught in Renee's wake? I wanted to ask, to pry, but I knew better. Tamsin was signaling that the storm had already started, and I was now considered an early warning, not a target. Next, I turned to the flash drive Caleb had given me. It took me most of the day to extract everything and verify the files weren't corrupted. What I found wasn't just audio manipulation, it was video fabrication. She had created an entire video of me in Cancun. Not deepfake, not quite. But cleverly layered, grainy footage spliced with older vacation clips from years ago. She changed the timestamps. Used AI to map my voice. It wasn't perfect, but to an investor or a nosy journalist, it would have looked real enough. Real enough to tank me. And that's when it hit me. She was preparing to collapse her own company. She wasn't covering her tracks, she was writing the downfall, assigning blame, and walking away with the parachute. She was framing me as the whistleblower who triggered the collapse. Caleb as the co-conspirator. And in the chaos that followed, she would vanish with whatever offshore funds she'd siphoned away under the company's name. I wasn't just a ghost in her story. I was her alibi. And maybe, her scapegoat. So I flipped the script. The next day, I reached out to someone I hadn't spoken to in nearly a decade, my college roommate, Theo. He worked in cybersecurity. Quiet job. Government adjacent. He owed me one, after I covered for him during a messy fraternity scandal that nearly cost him his clearance. Theo didn't ask many questions. He didn't need to. Once I sent him the files, he called me immediately. Jesus, Elle, this is deep. She's using at least 3 anonymizers, 2 data laundering apps, and she's rerouting her messages through encrypted onion servers. This isn't hobbyist-level fraud. This is practiced. I let that sit in silence for a second. Can you trace the funds? I asked. He snorted. I can try. But if I do, she'll know someone's sniffing. Let her know, I said. I want her to feel it now. By nightfall, Theo had found the first offshore trail, a crypto wallet tied to a shell company registered in Belize. A deposit had been made just 4 days earlier. Amount, 6 figures. Purpose, contracted research and data services. A lie. It was a payout. One of probably many. I sat alone in that tiny rental with my jaw clenched and my fists balled. I had let her walk out of our marriage thinking she'd won. That she'd played the game better than me. But now I understood, this was never just about us. It was always about what she could gain. How she could reframe reality around her benefit. I was just her soft landing. Her frontman. Her idiot husband who never questioned anything. But I wasn't him anymore. I crafted a final package, everything backed up, formatted, and labeled, and sent it to a list of 4 people. Tamsin LeClaire. Caleb. My own lawyer. A contact of Theo's inside the SEC. By the time I went to sleep that night, I knew the dominoes had been set. She wouldn't know which direction the fall had come from. But I wasn't ready for what came next. Because the very next morning, I got a knock on the door of my nowhere town rental. A knock that shouldn't have come. A knock that meant I wasn't as invisible as I thought. When I opened the door, I didn't see Renee. I saw her father, who had been dead to us since our wedding day. And the first thing he said was, "Ellison, she's coming for you. And you need to hear what she did to me first." I hadn't seen Renee's father, Everett, in over a decade. The last time we spoke, he told me I was too soft and not built for a woman like his daughter. He stormed out of our wedding reception before dessert. I never expected to see him again, and certainly not standing in front of my temporary hideout in a windbreaker, holding a faded photo of Renee as a teenager. His face was strained. Older than I remembered. He didn't even ask to come inside. He just looked at me and said, "You need to hear what she did to me before she ever met you." We sat on the back porch of the rental, the wind slicing through the trees like it carried secrets, and Everett unraveled a truth that reframed everything I thought I knew. Renee hadn't just turned on me. Or Caleb. Or her company. She had history, long, twisted, buried history. She was 17, Everett said, voice tight. And she forged my signature to take out a loan in my name. I didn't know until collectors showed up. When I confronted her, she smiled. Smiled, Ellison. And told me I'd never be able to prove it was her. She'd practiced the signature until it looked better than mine. He paused, pulled something from his coat, an old police report. Dismissed. No charges filed. She told the cops I was drunk. Violent. Said I was trying to pin my financial mistakes on her to cover up abuse. I lost my job the same month. Lost friends. My marriage crumbled. I could barely breathe. "I didn't tell you back then," he said, "because I thought maybe you were her turning point. Maybe you softened her. Gave her stability. But I watched from afar. And when I saw your name tied to her company's collapse, I knew she was doing it again. I felt sick. But more than that, I felt clarity. This wasn't about me. It was about her pattern. Her ability to manipulate systems. Rewrite stories. Leave devastation behind like footprints in soft dirt. And now, finally, someone else saw it too. Over the next 2 weeks, things moved fast. Tamsin LeClaire handed over her full report to the board. Caleb gave sworn testimony to company attorneys. Theo traced 3 more shell companies back to Renee's IP. The SEC began preliminary inquiries, and before long, her name hit the headlines, but not as a victim. This time, as a suspected orchestrator of corporate fraud. She tried to spin the narrative, of course. Hired a PR firm. Claimed she was being targeted by an obsessive ex-husband and a disgruntled former colleague. But the evidence was overwhelming. The voice-spliced recordings. The staged emails. The funds. The scripts. Truth has a sound to it. And for once, it was louder than her lies. She was arrested without ceremony. No camera crews. No teary breakdown. Just a booking photo and a court date. I didn't attend the trial. I didn't need to. I was already rebuilding. With the help of Theo, I cleared my name at work and filed a formal identity theft complaint. My lawyer pushed back on every whisper of defamation. And slowly, painfully, I started putting my life back together. Not in the same house. Not with the same routines. But with something I hadn't felt in a long time. Peace. Today, I volunteer part-time at a local nonprofit that helps victims of digital harassment and financial fraud. I've been working on a guidebook, something simple, free, for anyone who finds themselves blindsided like I was. It's called The Ghost-Proof Man. Not because I think I'm invincible now. But because I refuse to disappear in someone else's version of my story ever again. Sometimes I still wake up wondering if it was all real. But then I see the scar on my trust, and I remember, I made it out. Not just alive. Wiser. stronger, and free. Thanks for watching this story here on Reddit Confessions. Now I want to hear from you. What part of this story shocked you the most? Was it the fake recordings? The twisted scripts? The final confession from her father? Drop a comment below and let us know, have you ever uncovered a hidden side of someone you thought you knew? And don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell so you never miss another story like this. See you in the next one.